Hi, I am Natal'e Nostra, and this is Chats with Nat. Thank you again for tuning in. I got a viewer question the other day, so I wanted to share it. It's about relationships, which is something that I'm working on in the form of my conferences, and also I'm working on a book right now regarding relationships. So I definitely wanted to get this out there. The question was, once a person in a relationship has let you down multiple times, how do you make it easy on yourself by not dwelling on the past or having constant thoughts of what if? How am I sure that everything will be okay if things are even okay to begin with? I've let my guard down, and when I do trust, it gets broken. Is more than one chance enough or too much? So I thought this was a really good question, mostly because I think people in our generation, which I'm an 80s baby, so the 80s babies and the 90s babies, maybe even a little bit of the 70s babies, I think we have a very microwave mentality. Um, we have an instant gratification issue. Not everyone, but it's definitely something I think that we see more in those 70s, 80s, 90s generations than we've seen previously. A lot of that I think has to do with technology and the fact that we get things so quickly nowadays that we just kind of expect that everything's going to come relatively quickly. Um, so I wanted to just kind of touch on the fact that relationships are definitely not microwavable. Um, it's something that it takes a lot of time to really develop the kind of trust that you see on TV. Those TV relationships, they are not at all realistic. But anyway, um, in order to build trust, it takes a really long time, especially if you've had your trust broken in the past. So if you've had experiences where you've given your trust away and that trust has been broken, the likelihood that you're going to be able to trust easily is relatively low. And while I don't think that that is like a horrific situation, I think you just need to be aware of it and communicate that to your partner if trust is an issue for you. And also just be responsible for it. I'm definitely not the most trusting person in the world, and it does take a little while to earn my trust. But I can communicate that and I can own responsibility for that. And sometimes if I'm not being trusting, if my partner is patient with me and talks me through the process, a lot of times I can start to see maybe where I was being a little bit irrational. Um, so trust in and of itself is a very shaky thing. Now, if you're in a relationship with someone who's already broken your trust, that can prove to be a lot more difficult. Rebuilding trust with someone after it's been broken is not by any stretch of the imagination impossible. My grandparents have been married over 50 years. Whoop, whoop. And I know a lot of people have been married 20 plus years, 30 plus years, even 10 plus years. It's not that their marriages or the relationships were perfect. And trust, I'm sure, was broken in them at times. But they both made a decision, both of them, that they were going to move on past this. So the person who broke the trust was responsible for it and accountable for it and accepted responsibility for the emotions and the strain on the relationship that happens once that's been done. And the person whose trust had been broken, they made a conscious decision that while they could express themselves freely, they were going to try not to let it overtake the relationship and to move on past it. And it takes both people doing those things in order to really move on past the event where the trust was broken. So the next thing that I would say is, are you both doing your part to move on past the hurt? If you both want to move on past the broken trust, it's really important that you're each pulling your own weight. You should be able to express yourself freely without kind of holding over his head every time that he does anything or goes anywhere. And he should be able to kind of take it because he's the reason why you ended up in that position to begin with. The other thing is, finding out why the trust was broken. I don't know if this was an infidelity issue or if it was something else, but finding out what was the motivation behind it. I think a lot of men are not cheating for sexual reasons, and there's a lot of research that supports that. A lot of times it's because they're emotionally lacking something in the relationship, but unfortunately they're unable to communicate exactly what it is. That's a society issue, and I think that's a cultural issue because we teach our men that communication is feminine. It is not feminine. Men, please stop thinking that. Women, please stop teaching your children that communication is feminine because it's not. We need you to communicate with us. We need you to tell us what's going on with you so that we can meet your needs. But I do think that men really struggle right now with communicating what they need out of a relationship or what they need emotionally. And as a result, if someone else seems to give it to them, that can be a lot of times the door that opens into the infidelity. Just for example, just throwing something out there, I think sometimes when we get in a relationship, it can be really easy to forget to pay them compliments or to kind of swoon over them. And that kind of honeymoonish attitude that we have towards our lovers and towards our partners in the beginning, when we think they're the most attractive thing we've ever laid eyes on, and we're constantly telling them how attractive they are, it kind of wears off. Like, let's all be honest, it wears off after a little while, but it's important to try to keep that alive. And still be making that person feel like they're attractive, feel like they're wanted, and feel like they're desired. So sometimes if that's been lacking in a relationship and a man is getting that kind of attention elsewhere outside of the relationship, that can be kind of what opens the door to infidelity. Now, I'm not at all saying that it's the woman's fault for not giving him compliments. I'm just saying this is kind of how it happened. So it's important to understand what was it that he felt like he was missing. Or was there a certain part of the relationship where he was unhappy that led him to seek that affection elsewhere? So, that being said, how do you make it easy on yourself by not dwelling on it or constantly thinking, what if? You stop thinking, what if? This is definitely a big personal development topic. It's one I should probably talk about. The past is in the past. The past is in the past, is in the past, is in the past. It's over and it's done with, and there's nothing you can do about it. We have to stop reliving what has already happened because we can't do anything about it. If you're dwelling or you're fixated on things that have already occurred, not only are you missing out on the joy that you have in your life right now and the beautiful things that are going on for you right now, but you're also, it's like you have a scab and you just keep picking it open. Stop picking it open. Let it heal over. Let it scab over. Let it scar over. And eventually that pain is not going to be so crippling in your life. So stop picking your scabs. What if, I don't know, what if the world blew up yesterday? It doesn't make any difference what if. So you have to kind of put that behind you and continue to move forward. And that's something that you have to accept responsibility for and get really passionate about so that you can move on with your life. And not just in this relationship, but with anything. We all have things that affected us in our past. I know I've got a lot of them. But if I dwelled on them constantly every day, what happened to me 5, 10, 15 years ago, I wouldn't be able to achieve the things or have the happiness that I have in my life now. Those things happened to me. They changed me. I chose to let them change me for the better. As long as you learned something from it, that's all that really matters. But close that chapter in your book. Find some kind of peace or healing from it, whether that's through a higher power or through your own understanding of yourself. But you've got to be able to close that chapter and move on with yourself. And finally, I just want to talk about the other part of the question was, how do you even know if things are okay now? You don't. We have to stop trying to control everything. And in the world that we live in, I think a lot of people are really focused on having control of their relationships, having control of their finances, having control of their career, having control of their weight, having control of their looks. And the reality is you don't have control of anything. Right now, an airplane could shoot into my room here and kill me, and I would have absolutely no control over that. I can sit here and dwell on the fact that an airplane could fall out of the sky at any minute and crush my bones. But what kind of life am I going to be living if that's the kind of things that I'm thinking about every day? I choose to think positively because you have two options. You can think positively or you can think negatively. Those are your choices. If you want to choose to think negatively, your life is going to revolve around worry, anxiety, and fear, and you will never achieve anything worthwhile. I can promise you that. If you choose to focus on the positive side of things, you may be wrong from time to time, and people may disappoint you and let you down, and situations might not go the way that you planned them in your head, but you will be much happier. And when you're happy, as I said in my last video, and you're exuding positivity, you attract positivity into your life. So I would definitely say, don't worry about whether or not they're okay. Communicate to your partner and see what you can get from him as far as where you're at in the relationship. But you don't know if everything is okay. You don't know if this is the person that you'll spend the rest of your life with. And you have to just learn how to kind of enjoy the ride. I call it riding the wave. Let's just all learn how to ride the waves instead of trying to swim upstream. Things are going to happen in your life, and you just have to learn how to go with the flow and get what you can get out of it in order to move on to the next place. But if you're constantly trying to swim upstream and the stream is trying to push you in one direction and you're fighting to go the other way, you may not know what blessings are on the other side of that. So stop swimming upstream and start riding the waves. And the last part, I'm sorry, is more than one chance enough or too much? This is something you really have to answer for yourself. I have been in relationships where, fidelity is a big issue for me. If you can't be faithful to me, I don't know why we're in a relationship. If you want to be with other people, that's okay, but let's not mince that and end up in a relationship together if you're still wanting to play the field, which I totally respect. It depends. It really depends. I would say ask yourself, what does this person offer you from a positive standpoint? And is that worth losing more than the issue itself is worth moving through? So I guess in other words, can you move through this issue? Can you move past this issue? And is it worth it to you? Does this relationship provide you with enough that you feel like you should stay in it and work through it? Now, chances can be, you can give people chances until the day that you die, and they can continue to make the same poor decisions. So it's really important to be able to observe people's behavior and be aware of exactly where they are in that process. If you're continuing to see the same behaviors and nothing is really changing, then this is a one-sided relationship and your partner is not really doing what needs to be done in order to move on from the issue in the relationship. So chances are really kind of up to the person that's in the relationship. I know people who are married who have survived infidelity. There's a lot of things in their relationships that made it seem like that was the best decision for them, was to stay together, because they had so many things together and so many wonderful things together, good things, positive things. It wasn't worth it to just throw all that out over one bad decision. But in the same token, the person who made the bad decision was accountable and responsible and changed his behavior, and that was observable by the other person in the relationship, so they could move forward together as one and put that behind them. So it's really important to kind of pay attention to, are they changing? What are they changing? How fast are they changing? And also just being aware of yourself and your own feelings about it and dealing with them in an appropriate way, so that you're not constantly lashing out at your partner, because that's unfair to both of you as well. So I hope that has been helpful. And that in some way, I hope that it gives you something that you were looking for in order to move past this. Again, if you have any questions or there's topics that you'd like me to discuss, please email me at natalenostra@gmail.com. That's NATALENOSTRA@gmail.com. For more inspiration and ways to love the life you live, please join us on January 24th at the Adams Mark Hotel in Buffalo, New York for the MAP conference sponsored by the Restoring Life Project. It is going to be a great time, and I hope to see you there. Have a wonderful evening.